Okay, thank you very much. The live stream has started. So I'm Councillor Philip Davis. I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee A of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Can I ask everyone to make sure you've muted your microphones in order to improve the sound quality while I talk about the procedure? And also, please turn off cameras with the exception of committee members. Committee members will generally keep the cameras switched on throughout the hearing. And again, please have mobile phones on silent and ensure you're in the room where there are minimal distractions given the nature of the meeting. It's obviously important that everyone making representations and all participants are able to hear me and the members of the subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time for the regulations for these type of meetings. I also confirm this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website so that the general public can view it. The formal agenda is as follows. 1. Notice of recording webcast. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site and that members of the press and public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in the agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Apologies and notification of nominee members. Apologies were submitted on behalf of Councillor Morrell and Councillor Wagg is substituting today. I confirm the minutes, item 4 of the meeting held on 22nd of August 2022. So now can I work? Sorry?
Just said agreed.
Okay, agreed, right. Okay, yes, thank you very much. So can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect of Brum's Finest, 3 York Road, Kings Heath, Birmingham, B14 7SA. Again, I have introduced myself. I'm also joined today by Councillor Locke and Councillor Wagg. We constitute the members of the subcommittee. Also present to the meeting are the following officers: the licensing officer, Linda Nandra, committee manager, meeting manager, Ms. Katie Townsend, the committee lawyer, Ms. Joanne Swamphill. And in terms of the parties attending, can I just check again that you are fully connected to the meeting? Firstly, the applicant, Mr. Rahman, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, those making representations. Councillor David Barker.
I'm here, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Rosie Day.
Yes, we're here.
And Mr. Dietmar Heinke.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can I ask those making representations, and that's just the last 3 people, if you wish to withdraw those representations at this stage of the hearing? If I have no response, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so representations stand. I'll assume all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with a notice of today's hearing. Please note, given the nature of today's proceedings online, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules that meeting is taking place in that way, but I want to assure you that all such amendments will not impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing. We use a chat function, which I think everybody's familiar with these days as a backup. Don't worry if you haven't got that, if you're in on audio, as I think Mr. Rahman is basically, you can indicate in the usual way, but vote or audibly that you wish to speak. But the procedure will bring people in at the appropriate point. Those of us who have the chat function, could we just, for the purposes of recording attendance, just access the chat function now, please, and type in our names. I'm just doing that now myself.
Chair, the applicant won't be able to do this because they are on an audio.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah, okay. So we will append their names obviously to the recorded list as appropriate. Okay. think that is okay. Thank you for that. Just getting back to the main screen now. Okay. There we are. Okay, thank you for that. Anyone on audio, telephone, and that is the applicant and his representative. Are you still receiving me, Mr. Rahman? Are you still in contact?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. That's good. That seems to be working okay. And again, just remind those other than the members of the subcommittee, if you keep your camera off, unless you are the person speaking, that will assist with the broadband. Thank you. Okay, so we're now on to preliminary points. So this is addressed to Mr. Rahman and the persons making representations. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? This is normally on a procedural matter. Did you have any issues about process? I mean, I can press on and outline the procedure.
Chair, can I just make a little point?
Yes, yep.
Yes. Can Mr. Dietmar Haig identify themselves who they are, because I don't have any representations in the bundle from him.
Oh, okay.
So my representation was made together with Rosie Day. So basically,
Okay, so,
whatever.
It was a joint representation with both our names.
okay. So that probably explains that, Mr. Rahman.
Yeah, well, yes, it does. It does. Thank you.
Okay, right. Let me press on then on the procedure. Firstly, I'm going to ask the licensing officer, Mr. Papindanandra, to present his report. Then Mr. Rahman, on behalf of the applicant, will make his representations. And we're asking that that be kept to around 20 minutes. Then those making representations will be invited to make their case. And again, you have 20 minutes each, but essentially we need to avoid repetition. So, you know, if you have heard an earlier person make a statement that you agree with, you can just say we agree with the previous statement. Again, if all parties could speak slowly and clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and will assist the live stream watching as well. And again, please note, keeping microphones mute will also assist communication in terms of avoiding any distractions when others are speaking. The subcommittee may ask questions at any stage, but try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, I will be alerted via the chat mechanism or by the committee manager. But as I've said, just indicate if you wish to deal with that process. Occasionally, it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I'm going to ask all parties to wait in the meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to this meeting and continue. If at any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. Again, if at any time the members go into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I'll ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream is resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission, and that will be around 5 minutes. And can I stress that no decision will be taken until all evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting in order to determine the decision, and we'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that we need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. Members will then make their decision. Notification of the determination of the application will be sent to all parties within 5 days. Okay, that is the process. So with that, I'd like to ask the licensing officer, Mr. Nandra, to present his report. Mr. Nandra.
Thank you, Chair. Javed Hussain applied on the 25th of July 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for Brum's Finest, 3 York Road, Kingsheath, Birmingham, B14 7SA. The purpose of the report is to consider representations that have been made in respect of an application for a premises licence, which initially sought to permit the provision of late night refreshment to operate indoors only from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. Sunday to Thursday and 11 p.m. until 4 a.m. Friday and Saturday, with the premises to remain open to the public from 1 p.m. until 2 a.m. Sunday to Thursday and 1 p.m. until 4 a.m. Friday and Saturday. However, after discussions with West Midlands Police, the applicant has agreed to cease all licensable activities at 1 a.m. Sunday to Thursday and 3 a.m. Friday and Saturday, with the premises to operate a takeaway service only after 1 a.m. with no food orders taken after 2:30 a.m. in person or online for delivery. A representation was received from West Midlands Fire Service as a responsible authority, which is attached at Appendix 1 of the report. However, I can confirm that the matters of concern in their representation have been rectified and they have subsequently withdrawn their representation. Representations have been received from other persons, which are attached at Appendices 2 to 7. The application is attached at Appendix 8. Conditions have been agreed with West Midlands Police and the applicant, which are attached at Appendix 9, and site location plans are attached at Appendix 10. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, or exclude from the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So now, Mr. Rahman, is the opportunity for you to present your client's application. Mr. Rahman.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much to the rest of the committee and the people making representations to give my client an opportunity to make his representations. At the outset, and I cannot be any more firmer on this as a result of my instructions from my client, is that in the representations that have been provided with this application for this hearing, there appears to be allegations of homophobia and a drug-related connection. In that respect, my client has instructed me to make it clear at the outset that he does not have any homophobic propensities or inclination, and those allegations, he's saddened by those allegations, and he will, if there are any allegations, provided they're reported to the appropriate authorities, he will fully cooperate with that. But he operates a zero tolerance policy in relation to any hate behavior, hate-related behavior. So I just want that to be put on the record, Chair. And, you know, as I said, my client is saddened by that, that, you know, there has been allegations raised in connection with some form of homophobia behavior, or as one representation suggests, that there's drug dealing going on there. So for that, my client has asked me to make that abundantly clear at the outset. Going on from that, Chair, in relation to this application, and I'm thankful to the licensing officer's submissions on that point. He has actually cleared up two things which I was going to raise. So therefore, in that respect, I'm not going to take much more of the committee's time. Safe to say that, yes, there were representations made by two responsible authorities, namely the police and the fire service. The fire service are now satisfied, and I believe they've withdrawn their representation. The same with the police. They have suggested and agreed with our clients a number of operating conditions which in my skeleton arguments, and I trust that the committee and the chair has had an opportunity to read, the operating conditions which my client will be more than happy to subscribe to if this license was granted. In relation to the representations made by the esteemed councillor and the residents, the first representation that I want to, in relation to, I'll deal with the residents' representation. The first representation I want to raise an issue on is whether the representations made by, is it Miss or Mrs. Rosie Day, with the greatest of respect, we take the view that those representations may be outside the statutory period, which is 28 days. Following on from that, even though the representations may be out of the statutory period, I will comment on the representation in relation to Miss Rosie or Mrs. Rosie Day. Chair, these representations appear to be touch upon activities within the vicinity during the daylight hours. Now, our client's application obviously is from 11 o'clock, which is 2300 hours, to 1 o'clock now, whereas initially it was 2 o'clock, but it's been now agreed that it will be 1 o'clock from Sunday to Thursday. And in relation to Friday and Saturday, it's from 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Now, these representations, Mrs. Day's representation, appear to relate to activities during the day, right? And they seem to relate to matters which I would respectfully submit are within the jurisdiction of other responsible authorities, like, for instance, planning, the police. And in my skeleton argument, I have referred you to particular sections of the guidance under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and also to the interim council policy statement in relation to licensing. And that is unequivocal in respect of saying, requiring that decisions regarding planning must be adjudicated upon their own merits. And in that respect, I would respectfully submit to the licensing committee that and my client does not take lightly the representations that have been put by the residents and the esteemed councillor. As a responsible business person, he has, as part of his application, he has complied with the licensing objectives, which is the primary concern of the licensing committee. And that in itself shows the responsible nature of my client. The fact that when representations were made by the fire service and the police authority, my client sat with both of them and addressed the representations that they made, and it would appear that those have now been alleviated. Now, if the chair and the committee wants me to actually go through the arrangements agreed with the police, I have put them down in my skeleton arguments. I'm more than happy to go through them, but I think perhaps it may not be, and obviously I am I am in your hands, the committee's hands, but I believe that it's on paper, it's in black and white, and I don't think it would serve any use for, or it would be an efficient use of the committee's time for me to go through each one of those operating conditions. Safe to say that my client is more than happy to subscribe to those conditions if license was permitted, or license was granted. Sorry. I know that there is also a pub in the near vicinity of my client's premises, and in my submissions I have given to the committee the licensing number of that particular public house, which has permission to operate up until 3 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. So I would like the committee to take that into account, although I concede wholeheartedly that the decision is to be decided on its own particular merits. However, as I said, it is something to for the committee to take into consideration. In these proceedings, I just want to make it absolutely clear to the committee that my client's premises is not a nightclub, it's not a discotheque, it's not a pub, it's a takeaway, or in the licensing committee's parlance, a late night refreshment entity. And alcohol is not to be served from the premises or to be used. It's just a takeaway. In relation to the pub opening till 3 o'clock, people obviously, being at the pub, would want a late night refreshment, and to have somewhere within the vicinity, I think it actually promotes the prevention of crime and disorder, because once people have had, picked up their food and taken it home, it means that it will disperse. So in relation to the residents' concerns, I will just go back, and then I will wrap up in my closing submissions, is that it is submitted, respectfully submitted, that this premises is not going to either increase the public nuisance, which they are quite rightly and entitled to be concerned about. And it also, in fact, Birmingham is a thriving night economy. It actually helps the local economy. Chair, if there's anything that I've missed out, or anybody wants to ask me questions, or my client, we're at your disposal, we're in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahman. We've received your statement, your skeleton argument, so thank you for that. We've obviously read that. Thank you for going over the point. Okay, Councillor Locke, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I'd just like to ask the question about how things like litter and deliveries will be, deliveries, to the premises will, for cooking and things like that, and also litter will be dealt with.
Do you Yes, thank you for your permission. Sorry, Councillor, I was just waiting for the Chair's permission to respond back to you. Yeah, that's a very good point, Councillor, and that's a point that I have taken instructions from my client. First and foremost, deliveries normally happen during the day, and they are already, those deliveries together with deliveries for other premises business premises, appear to have caused some sort of, and I think one of the representations actually referred to that, actually caused some concerns to the responsible authority, and they put in LTN bollards. But those the misuse of those LTN bollards is not only my clients. There are many businesses, cafeterias or pubs, including our clients, who receive deliveries in daylight hours. There are not going to be any deliveries at night time. In relation to litter, again, I feel, Councillor, that our client is more than happy to comply with any operating directions the committee wish to impose on their business. But again, my submission is litter is more within the jurisdiction of the planning authorities than it is within the jurisdiction of the licensing regime.
Thank you, Mr. Omar.
Can I ask?
Councillor Wang? Sorry, Councillor Locke, yes, please.
Sorry, Councillor Wang. I mean, when you say deliveries to the store in daytime, are there any specific hours for that? And I meant literally, like, are there going to be bins outside, or will there be a trade waste bin? Because surely that will be, I know, so, because will you be having a trade waste bin come, once a week or twice a week to collect the rubbish that may gather?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, and I just managed to take quick instructions from my client. They actually have two deliveries, two waste collection or bin collection commitments. So yes, in relation to our particular client's business, they have waste disposal people come in twice a week during the daylight to remove any litter or waste.
Okay, Councillor Locke. Thank you. Councillor Wag, do you have any questions?
Just the one. I would like to know whether it's confirmed that there will be no drinking of liquor on the premises at all.
Yes, Councillor, thank you. Very good point, Councillor. Yeah, they will be under no circumstances any liquor or alcohol or any substance of an intoxicating nature either served or consumed on the premises or within the vicinity of the premises.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wag, thank you. And for me, Mr. Raymond, you correctly point out that this committee is not concerned with matters of parking, littering, those sort of issues. Those are more, as you correctly point out, the province of the Planning Committee. There is a representation at Appendix 7 around noise nuisance. I don't know whether you've had a chance to see that, and perhaps you have, but I wondered if you could comment on the likelihood of noise nuisance to residents, given that the map indicates that residential property is quite close to the premises.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to express my observations on that. This is an application for a grant of permission for extended hours on Friday and Saturday, and even to on the weekdays. Chair, our view is, and I mean, this is my client and my view, and there isn't any concrete or technical evidence to substantiate this, but on a common sense basis, ambient noise is going to be quite high at night in the vicinity of the business, because Alcester Road is one of the main arteries in and out of Birmingham. But it will not be on the same level as it is during the day within the hours up to 2300 hours. That again is a planning control issue. As opposed to a licensing issue. However, from 2300 hours to 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock, our view is that, I know the esteemed Councillor Barker has referred to this, but in my submissions, as I said, if noise is an issue, then I think the local authority noise services should, undertake some sort of a study into it to establish whether it is harmful. But our submissions is that the opening of our business, our client's business, does not affect the noise level within the vicinity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rahman. So you have the chance to sum up later, but is those your submissions then?
Yes, those are my submissions. So that the ambient noise is not increased, or if it's increased, but it may be increased by a fraction.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, well, if that's all you wish to say around the application for the moment, I'd like to move on to representations and move to Councillor Barker next. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I got a sore throat after the weekend. Thank you very much. I will try and be quick, just because I don't take up too much of your time. Thank you also to Councillor Wagg and Councillor Locke for giving me your time. I just feel that you can read my statement for my views on this. I don't retract any of them. I stand by it. And again, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I would say, if it's okay, just to read that, and also all the other submissions from residents, which, as I read, seem to all say the same thing, that Brum's Finest have, in many ways, a blight on the street, and rewarding them with a license into the early hours just seems like an insult to all the residents. And indeed the businesses that I've spoken to as well. I would like to say I'm glad that their solicitor flagged just how many objections there have been from all quarters, from the police, the fire service, and as someone who actually speaks with all the residents and businesses, I cannot emphasise enough how unanimous the opposition to this is. I'd also like to pick up on them saying that this licence would help to reduce violence and disorder because people would buy food after a night out. I mean, it would be laughable if it weren't so chilling to come so quickly after a dismissal of a gay man writing in to tell you that a delivery driver called him a faggot and threatened them with violence. And I've spoken with a man who has said the same thing, who might not even be the same person. But I'm really concerned by just how quickly they were able to dismiss that. But onto the licensing issues. The simple fact is you have a load of residents, and myself, and Councillor Trickett telling you the same story, that the license is not being respected currently, not even remotely. The reasons for this are spelled out in my statement and that of others. I mean, the LTN bollard is one issue, and I'm also concerned that the solicitor seemed to dismiss that by saying, well, it's not just my client that does this. It's one of the weakest arguments I think you could come up with. And I would want to flag to them that they also said that this was a license for deliveries at night. But in their answer to Councillor Locke's questions, they said there wouldn't be deliveries at night, which made me wonder which is it. Not that it really matters, because either way, they're irresponsible and should not have this license. And dangerous driving in the day by driving through pedestrianised zone is bad enough, but at night, as I said in my submission, would be much worse. And I would also like to flag that because of the mourning period surrounding Her Majesty the Queen's death and then funeral, it covered the period when people could apply to come to this meeting as well. And I didn't advertise because I didn't want to put anything on social media. But there have been quite a few residents who contacted me asking to come, every single one of them to object. And I realised with postponing this, that's affected people's ability to attend as well, which is unfortunate, but I just wanted to make you aware that there are plenty of other residents who wanted to come. And as I said in my submission, every single person spoken negatively. I get more complaints about this business than every single other one put together. And again, I oppose this extension of a license or this award of a license if it wasn't obvious. And again, frankly, I believe their current license needs to be called into review long before we can consider anything else. It really is that bad. I cannot tell you how frequently I have residents contact me saying that the same car, same license plates are committing the same crimes. I mean, the way they have behaved towards other residents' businesses is abhorrent. And to try and make out that a local pub wants them to be around because they might serve food afterwards, it's just insane. It's laughable. It's really beneath all of us, and I don't want to waste any more of our time with this. But thank you all very much for listening to what I had to say. And that's all I'll say for now. Thank you.
Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Let me just intervene because we're on members' questions technically now at this stage to ask you which of the four conditions, the licensing conditions, which we have to consider, and we can only work within the remit of those conditions. We can't consider planning matters, traffic matters, a number of matters which have been raised already. We certainly can't consider, alleged acts against individuals of the sort you've described. But the four, you've listed the four licensing conditions in your letter. Which of those do you allege are not being met currently, or you suggest would not be met if we were to grant this application?
Yeah, all four. Primarily, I think the dangerous driving is obviously public safety, and also to a lesser degree, protection of children from harm. But yes, public safety is that one. I mean, crime and disorder, absolutely, is part of this as well. But the main one would be public nuisance, and I think you can really feel that from just how strong the feeling for residents has been. That they are currently considered to be a public nuisance, and to extend their license would only exacerbate the problem. So for me, in large part, I'm opposing this purely because that public nuisance will be much worse, and I will just have no end of emails and phone calls from people complaining about them more than they do now. And it's simply because the way they have operated has been so bad, as spelled out in everyone's reports. And allowing to go into the night, I just think would be much, much worse. We already, I will say, have issues on the license matter with other businesses on the road operating within the times at night as well. Like not every other business have to work out how they can move forward within noise, within what they're licensing, what they're selling, because it's mostly bars there. They're all having to kind of rein in a bit what they're doing anyway. And largely these are good businesses that are actually trying to do their best, and even they're, sometimes causing issues with residents. I just fail to see, given everything that we've seen and read, how this won't be an absolute disaster.
Okay, that's your view. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Wagg, have you any questions for Councillor Barker? You're on mute, Councillor Wagg. No questions? No. Councillor Locke?
No questions. I think that's quite there.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Councillor Barker. There'll be a chance for you to sum up at the end for about 5 minutes. Thanks. I'll just move then to Mrs. Day and Mr. Hunker. You're on the same feed in, aren't you?
Yeah.
But Mrs. Day, would you like to speak to the committee then about your concerns?
Okay, thank you. So, well, start by clarifying that I'm pretty sure that my representation was within the stipulated period. I'm a bit surprised to hear the challenge to that.
Let me deal with that. We did check that. I should have said earlier. We did check that with Mr. Andrew, the licensing officer, and we were assured that it came in on the 22nd of August, which was the deadline, but it was within the deadline. So, you know, we are accepting your representations to that extent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, would you like to go on?
Sure. So our representation is on two grounds related to the Act, so noise and nuisance and crime and disorder. So I'll start with the noise and nuisance. So as you're probably aware, we live on Kingsgate, which is very close to York Road. It runs parallel to York Road, and we're not fully shielded from York Road with buildings. So basically, the main living parts of our house, and our neighbours, the living rooms and bedrooms all face York Road, and there's quite large gaps in the building structures. So basically, anything that happens on York Road, we hear extremely well. We pretty much face York Road without any barriers between us. We do have a lot of issues with the noise from York Road, and this is something we've been speaking to our councillors about in general. It's not only due to this business, but what we're really concerned about is that extending the activities on York Road and extending the hours of the activities is really just going to add to this. So currently at weekends, we have a lot of noise on the road until about 1 a.m. It pretty much stops after 1 a.m, but we're really worried, and also 11 a.m, sorry, p.m. Yeah, 1 a.m. weekends, 11 p.m. on weekdays. So we're really worried about extending the activities on York Road that will keep people outside on the road by another 2 hours on both weekdays and weekends. So just again to clarify that our objections is very much about nighttime activity, not about daytime activity, as was earlier said. So it is the case that there is one pub in the vicinity with a licence till 3, but I think that that's quite a different kind of thing. So actually that pub, it doesn't have outside activity until late. They have people inside, and that pub also has very, very good soundproofing. So I think trying to make a parallel between this application and what happens in that pub isn't really a very good parallel. This is a takeaway premises. It's a food and takeaway premises. It's a small premises. It just has a few seats inside. It doesn't have any toilets as far as I'm aware. And I think, you know, imagining that people won't stand outside a food premises eating takeaway food in the street is rather naive. So I think, you know, whatever's been said, I think it's pretty clear. We all know that basically this kind of premises at night when people come out of pubs will have people buying food, standing outside and eating food outside. And it's really going to lengthen the amount of time that people are standing outside on York Road making noise. I just want to stress again that York Road is in the middle of a residential area. It's very close to houses on Kingsgate, on Milford Place. It is true that it's also close to Ulster Road, but we don't, you know, again, it's not comparable with the traffic noise from Ulster Road, which is a bit further away and which just doesn't affect us in the same way. So we can't provide any technical evidence, but we can, you know, we are witnesses as residents that we do really suffer from noise nuisance on York Road. It's already a problem. And the last thing that we need is more noise, adding to that and extending the hours of that noise for 2 hours. We really, really do have a problem with this. So the other point is about crime and disorder. And I do want to clarify here that I'm not personally I've no evidence to personally hold this business responsible for any drug dealing in the vicinity. But again, our concern is about keeping people on the road late at night for longer and really extending the hours to which people are hanging around on York Road. So from our house, the space between our house and York Road, we have people urinating in that space because there aren't enough toilets on York Road for the number of people who want to be outside. This premises has no toilets. So I think opening this for longer for people coming outside of pubs, eating and drinking with no toilets is really going to increase that kind of unpleasant disorder that happens. Another thing that we do see in the vicinity is the drug dealing that takes place in the car park areas. Again, I can't hold anyone specifically responsible for this, but we're worried about extending the activities on York Road and extending the nighttime economy, that's really only going to add to that kind of problem and not help to control it. I think that basically summarises our points. Yeah, just to clarify in response to the things that were raised earlier, our objections are very much to nighttime activity, not to do with daytime activity. And I do believe that this is directly related to the Licensing Act and not just to planning matters. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. That's very helpful. I'll just go to members for questions. Councillor Wag, any questions? Councillor Locke?
None for me, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and none from me. So thank you very much, Mrs. Day. Mr. Heinke, do you want to make
I
a
can only
presentation?
second what my partner said, which I thought was a very eloquent representation. So yes, I completely agree with everything she raised.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for that. So that has helped us with the time, but we've heard that very clearly. Thank you. Okay, if that's all your submissions there, we actually go now to closing submissions. So what will happen is you have a chance, Mrs. Day, to and Mr. Heinke to sum up, and then Councillor Barker, and then I come to Mr. Raymond for the applicant. So, Mrs. Day, would you like to sum up?
Basically, just to say, we already have problems on York Road. We're really suffering with the noise. The last thing that we need is for premises that are going to create more noise to be extending that activity by 2 hours, basically. And we really would like that not to be granted.
Thank you.
Everything else I just said. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Heinke, all you need to say is you agree again, if you wish. Mr. Heinke? Mrs. Day, you're still there because you're on the same link, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, now it's working. Sorry, we had some technical issues here.
Okay.
Yes, I completely agree with what my partner said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I'll come to Councillor Barker. So Councillor Barker, 5 minutes to sum up your views.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take that long. I just want to thank my two residents as well for making the time to come today and kind of eloquently putting what the lived experience is like. Again, for those who don't know, York Road is actually a residential road. It has hospitality businesses on it, but if you look at it kind of on a map, you kind of can't even tell. There's actually kind of residential flats and houses shooting off it all the way around. It is a residential area, but just has a lot of leisure and hospitality businesses as well. And I think that needs to be respected rather than some kind of race to the bottom where we think, oh, well, they're open late, even though they're in a soundproof building, therefore we can be open late with our doors open and no real checks or anything. Yeah, I think it's pretty well established that this isn't a planning issue that we're dismissing it on or anything else. It is Licensing Act very, very clearly. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you very much for that. So now finally to Mr. Raymond. Mr. Raymond, your chance to sum up your applicant's case.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, basically, what I would, in my humble submissions, first and foremost, thank you to the representations from the residents and the esteemed councillor. I just want to make it clear, Chair, that before I go on to my submissions, is this particular area where my client's business is situated is actually a mixed-use area. It's not a residential area. It is mixed-use area. And if I may address Mrs. Rosie Day's submissions, she says that the noise emanating from York Road, and that does not necessarily mean that it's my client's. She's obviously concerned about noise emanating from the whole of York Road, which she's perfectly entitled to, and we accept that. And she also confirms that there is no technical evidence to substantiate that. So we'll have to read that into her submissions. In relation to the allegations, which is the ones that have concerned our client the most regarding criminal offences. We take on board her comments regarding that there's no evidence about those, but albeit she did say that drug dealing may happen in some car park near the vicinity. We don't know. So that we'll just leave at that. In relation to my submissions, Chair, I will just my submissions, Chair, are this. The esteemed councillor said that, and we do not doubt for one moment many complaints. Of course, he will. However, based upon the representations that have been put before the committee in respect of this application, I think that if he asserts that there are so many complaints, then my client is entitled to assert that, well, there are far more people who should be or would be in the circumstances affected by the concerns that's raised by these 6 residents and councillor the esteemed councillor. But there are far more people who've not raised concerns, and surely there are more than 6 people, 6 residents. So that's point 1. Point 2 is that the licensing committee, and I do not want to come over as professing or elaborating on the guidance or the remit within which they should consider this application, because I'm fully aware that the council has a legal person to advise them on that matters. But I just want to refer the committee to the particular sections of the policy guidance, of the policy of the Licensing Act 2003. And in my humble submissions, I would say that there is a presumption that licensing authorities will accept in very exceptional circumstances, grant rather than refuse a license application. And if there is a licensing application, in appropriate cases, the licensing committee is entitled to attach operating conditions, obviously, provided those are volunteered by the applicant. So that's my submission in respect of that. The guidance to Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 imposes on the licensing committee to have proper regard to the evidence being placed before them. In that regard, I will submit that apart from bare representations by the councillor, esteemed councillor, and the local representations, there hasn't been any technical evidence provided to this committee, either by the esteemed councillor or the residents, or Birmingham City Council itself, that it actually that there is a noise issue at night. And I think, in relation to the guidance to Section 182, it does require that, the licensing committee should have a proper regard for the evidence before them and arrive at their decision based upon the balance of that evidence. Moving on from that, the guidance also, the guidance to Section 182, also neither promotes or discourages extended licensing hours, but would consider each application on its own merits. And in that respect, we would respectfully ask the licensing committee to consider this application on its own merits without preconceptions or summarization of the matters which we do not for 1 minute fault the residents or the esteemed councillor for raising those concerns. In fact, we are very grateful, because the whole purpose of the licensing regime and the licensing objectives is to have regards to these these kind of issues. So on that basis, we are thankful to them. I want to just touch upon the operating conditions which my client has agreed with the police, and which will, if this license is granted, which will be effective to alleviate some of the issues raised in this application. My client has agreed with the police that the CCTV at the premises will be switched on and recorded at all times the premises carry out licensing activities. And CCTV will be positioned to cover, at the very least, licensable areas, exits and entrances. And images will be retained for 31 days and will be made available to any responsible authority to view or copy or produce on request, subject to obviously the need.
Yeah, we have that information in front of us, Mr. Rahman. Obviously, it's a summing up, so if you want to just wrap it up, we've obviously got all that information. So, but thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So in summation, we would say that we would respectfully submit on behalf of our client that this application for a grant of a premises license is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your help, and thank you to the representations from the public and from Councillor Barker, which have all assisted the committee. I'll now ask all parties to leave the Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So thank you very much. That is the end of the public hearing.